Welcome back. In the next few lessons, we're going to be looking at editing and assembling a rough cut, kind of getting this movie started. So the first thing that we're going to do is import one of our work projects here. Here in the project manager, right click, and let's go to import project. And in your work files under projects, there should be probably a few more projects here, but what we want is 3A logged and synced media. Go ahead and hit open. And it should appear right here in the upper left. And let's just double click on that. And that will open up here in the edit page. Over here in our media pool, if we open up one of these bins, we'll see a lot of red media. And all that means is that the video files in this project, it just doesn't know where it's at on your system. So we can go up to where it says master and select both of these and right click and go to relink clips for selected bins. Now we'll navigate to our work files directory and just select media and then hit select folder. And what that'll do is search that folder and all of the folders inside of it for the media that it wants. And now here's all of our media. So yeah, anytime that you have media that's unlinked in Resolve, that's how you relink it. Super easy. And it actually works pretty well for the most part. That process has gotten a lot more painless over the last few versions of Resolve. As we mentioned in the last lesson, each of these pieces of media has audio that should sync to it. For instance, this one right here, when Sarah's talking, if I drag this into our timeline and we take a listen.
I mean, you know there's two of these, right? We can figure something out.
Oh, I'm aware that there's two of them, but I'm getting the distinct impression that you haven't done this before.
Look, I know this is worth a lot of money.
So we have the good audio, the secondary audio that we recorded with a separate mic synced up with all of our footage. Again, because this is a practical training where we go over stuff that happens in the real world, there are some clips that just didn't sync. And what we've done is color those clips orange. So almost all of the clips work fine, but anything that's orange, for whatever reason, wouldn't automatically sync, and so we'll have to do that manually if we use this clip. So we're going to go over that later, but just so you know. And then there's also a few clips that are pink. The pink clips just don't have audio that syncs to them. We just didn't record separate audio. So these are video only, and orange is, yes, there should be sound sync to it, but our fancy way of syncing audio didn't work, and if we use this clip, we'll have to do it manually. But for the most part, almost all of the clips have that secondary audio added, and it worked great. Now let's get into editing. Here's the coolest part about all of that work we did in the past couple lessons. If we go up to the media pool, there are a couple different views here. There's thumbnail view, there's list view, which we've looked at before, and there's also something called metadata view. And if we look at metadata view, and we open this up a little bit, we can actually sort these clips using this little button right here by scene and shot. And look what happens when we click this. It lists all of these clips in the basic order that they're going to be in for our movie. So everything from scene 1 comes first, everything from scene 2 comes second, and all the shots are basically in order, the same order as we had in the storyboard. So this is going to make it real easy for us to kind of automatically make a rough cut here. And it's also going to make it really easy for us to find any shot that we need to based on what we can see in the storyboard. So like I said, this is a lot of work to set up, but once you have it set up, it's very slick. Ideally, this would be something that you would do if you were shooting your own movie. After you shoot for one day, you'd come back and spend 20 minutes just organizing the media and labeling the metadata and that kind of thing. So by the time you're ready to edit everything, you just have everything labeled. So what we're going to be doing is building a rough cut one scene at a time. And like I said, the great thing about this is we know what comes first. It's this shot. And we have 4 different takes of this first shot. So let's double click on the first one. That'll open it up in the source viewer here. This is just a way to preview anything that's in the media pool. I'll go ahead and close this bin list real quick, just to give us a little more space. And let's just watch through this and see what it's like.
All right, we good?
Camera is rolling, audio is rolling.
All right, time is money. Scene 1, hotel, take 1.
And 3, 2, 1, go ahead.
So now that they've called action, this is probably where we're actually going to start using this shot, right? So if this is going to be the beginning of the shot, this would be great to actually set that beginning. And how you do that in the source viewer is by setting an in. You can click this button right here to mark an in. You could also hit I on your keyboard. And then we'll keep playing through this. So this is what you would call the master shot. This is the wide shot that kind of shows really clearly what's happening in the scene without a lot of emotion. This is great for clarity, but it doesn't necessarily feel super intense like we want it to feel. It just simply shows where everything in the room is, what's happening. And so it's a great shot to start with. And if we're going to use this shot, we'll stop it right there. So again, we can hit this button to mark an out, or we can also hit O on the keyboard. So I'll hit O on the keyboard. And now that we've marked an in and an out, it's just selected the part of the video in between the in and the out. And if we want to use this shot, we have to add it into the timeline. There are a few different ways to do that in Resolve. The easiest way is just to grab the image like this and drag it down into the timeline, and that would work fine. You can also grab it and drag it over the timeline viewer, and you have this little pop-up. And this is a way to just drop this into the timeline in a certain way. We'll probably be using this later, but for now we could put this over Insert, and it would do basically the same thing as just throw this into the timeline. So that's one take. And as we do this, I like to think of editing sort of like cooking. If the media pool and all of these things are our ingredients, the source viewer is like picking something up and looking at it or smelling it, you know, kind of checking it out. And the timeline is the cutting board. So this is kind of like your work area. This is eventually what whoever watches your movie is going to see. This is how you build the story that they're actually going to see. But you can also just be used for a place to kind of get organized and try different things. So we have our first take, and let's go ahead and double click on our next take and see if it's any better. And eventually we can just put all of the takes in here, and we could use a part of one of them and maybe a different part of another one, depending on what we like. But basically we're going to trim each one to be the usable parts, and then we'll kind of work with it down here in the timeline. And by the way, if you're asking, what about this viewer? If this is the ingredients and this is picking it up and smelling it, this is the cutting board, what's this one? Well, this is like the plate. This is what the person gets who is actually going to experience what you're making, right? It's a good metaphor, okay? Again, let's look at this. This time, just to make things easier, I'm going to use the J, K, and L keys on the keyboard. If I hit L, that will play back normal speed. If I hit K, that'll pause. And if I hit J, it'll play backwards. So it's really a nice way to kind of play back and forth. I can even hit J and L and just scrub back and forth like this. It's pretty much the same as hitting these buttons right here. And if I want to scroll through it really fast, I can hit J or L multiple times. So here's 1, and then 2. So it goes a little faster. 3 goes a little faster. So that's a nice way to kind of scrub through things. You can also use this little jog wheel right here, and you click and drag, and that will give you a little bit more fine controls to pick a specific part in your video. But what I usually like to do is just grab the playhead like this and scrub through, because I'm obviously not going to use it before the slate, and we'll start with her actually doing something. I'll hit I for in, and I'll go towards the end here right before director says cut, and hit O for out. The great thing is that we can change this later. We're not locked into this. This is just making a selection to put in our timeline just to make things a little bit easier later. So again, I'll just grab this image and drag it down into our timeline, and we'll go check out take 3. And I don't know how different all of these things are. That's something we'll have to kind of figure out. But for now, we're kind of just putting the clips down in the timeline. All right, so this take is actually a little bit later, where she already has her boots on, already has her vest on. So this is just kind of the last part of it. So she kind of completes that motion of putting on her vest, Goes and grabs the gun. Walks over. Looks like she does it again. Oftentimes, when you have a bunch of takes, the last take or the second to last take is probably the one that you want to use because that's the one the director actually liked. So I'm thinking it's going to be this last take here. All right. We'll hit our out there. Now click and drag with the middle button on my mouse, the scroll wheel button, to kind of drag this timeline back and forth. And again, grab this and drag it down here. So now, with this first shot, I'll close our media pool here. We have 4 different takes. And now it's up to us as the editor to decide, what the heck do we do here? Which shot is the best one? And again, pretty likely that the last take is the one that we want. So let's watch it and see if there's any problems that we can see. So she grabs the gun super weird. So that's definitely not what we want. Like, why would you do that? Oh, that's funny. Okay. That's good. If you can't have fun, why edit? All right, so we definitely don't want, that's probably why we shot the end here. So I'm thinking that these two can at least kind of combine. And we're gonna need a shot to kind of link these together. So I'm gonna trim the end of this last take because we definitely aren't gonna use the super awkward gun pickup. And I like this. I feel like that can work for part of it, but when she goes over to the window, it's not super great. So we might need to even use a different take. And that's the nice thing is you don't have to use just one take. It's not important that everything is from the exact same clip. These are multiple different takes. We have a bunch of different takes for a reason. And so we can kind of pick and choose the parts that are really good, and we can bridge these with other shots. So it doesn't look like she just kind of jumps forward in time like this. See, I like that when she opens the curtains. Now we might cut to a different shot, but I like that pretty well. So maybe after she picks up the gun, she walks over here and maybe we'll use that.